Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing on Tuesday night. Now, I'm in Los Angeles. I was just at the Laker Mavericks game. Just came over here to do that. Joining us from New York City is Tim Bontemps.
Hello, everybody. And also, howdy, partners, which I get to do because my guy MacMahon is so slow after the games that in light of a windy sleep update, which we're going to get because it's already 12:37 on the East Coast and the game just ended, rather than waiting for his tortoise-like work to finish, we're recording right now, right after the game, fresh after the Lakers defeated the Dallas Mavericks in the most important game in the history of humankind. And here we are, ready to break it down.
In all honesty, we wanted to wait till after this game to see if it was incredibly compelling. And we were going to have, hear from MacMahon and everything like that. And it just was. It was a quality game in terms of it was close late and everything. And the Lakers got a good win. They've won 9 out of 11. But I just didn't think it was a compelling game. It had a chance to be compelling.
It wasn't compelling enough for Brian to have his sleep cut into even further.
I have to get up at 3:45 to be on 7 a.m.
Like I said,
Eastern Sports Center.
Cut into even further.
Well, it's not like I'm like, oh, I need my 8 hours. Anyway, forget about that. Okay. So I will just say, before we talk about this game, the most amazing thing that happened tonight from my vantage point, Bontemps, is that I was out on the court pregame, and Nico Harrison, the Mavericks general manager, was wearing, and you probably saw it if you watched the game at all.
They showed him during the game, yes.
He was wearing a bright blue Mavericks color suit, okay?
By the way, real quick, because we talked about this the other day, full credit to Nico Harrison for showing up, and full credit to Nico Harrison for wearing a Mavericks bright blue colored suit to this game.
He picked that suit out when they left on the road trip, and he knew he was going to do it.
That's right.
And he came out before the game and sat right on the scorer's table, which he has done repeatedly in a number of occasions. I have spoken to Nico Harrison pregame, sitting where he would sit on the scorer's table. That was not an unusual thing for him to do.
He's out before games. He's consistently out before Mavericks games.
And so was Rob Pelinka. I spoke to both of them pregame, and they spoke to each other. That was on social media. Frank Vogel, who's a coaching consultant for the Mavericks.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Wow.
Attended the game and was out. I don't want to say they hugged, but embraced Rob Pelinka before the game. That was very interesting. Rob Pelinka, of course, fired him 2 years ago.
Yes, Jason Kidd was on Frank Vogel's staff when they won the title.
Right.
I did not know that Frank was doing that for J Kidd. That's fascinating.
He was there wearing his Mavericks gear. He lives in Los Angeles. And look, when you've raised a banner, when you've put a star on the center court, you may come walking through crypto.com arena with your head held high, but
sure.
So that was pregame interesting, right? Frank Vogel's out there.
That's all pretty good. Yeah.
Rob was, had a great chat with him pregame. Rob was, we talked about the tribute that they were doing for Anthony Davis, that they had they were honoring him. This is the Mavericks' last scheduled visit. I'd love to see a playoff game. This is the Mavericks' last scheduled visit this year. So even though AD wasn't playing, they wanted to honor him, and AD was out there, and he talked about what they had planned for that, and everybody was in good spirits. Nico was in good spirits. Nico was very out there. Okay, here's what we got to. Now here comes I have to say, for me, the most compelling moment of the night. And for a February pregame, Bontemps, the most compelling February pregame moment I've ever seen, when Luka comes out to warm up an hour before the game, give or take, and Nico is sitting very plainly, in a sea of blue and gold, in a bright blue suit, sitting very leisurely on the scorer's table when Luka comes out to warm up. They are 15 to 20 feet apart. Luka is shooting threes from the wing at one point, maybe 30 feet.
Yeah.
I am just sitting there watching it. I am sitting there watching it with Bill Duffy, who is Luka's agent.
Wow.
And,
okay.
And Bill has been around the NBA for
A
40
long
plus
time.
years.
A long,
And,
long time.
he's known Luka since Luka was 14. And he
He's
is
known
just,
Nico Harrison for a long time too.
that's right. And he's just sort of watching with a smirk on his face. He's like, you know, I've seen a lot of things in this league, and this is a special moment.
Sure is.
So, the arena's mostly empty. I mean, there's some fans in there, but like that to me, I thought was the beginning of amazing drama, and it kind of just wasn't. Luka had a good first shift, scored 10 points in the first quarter, made his first three, and then really didn't make much scoring wise the rest of the game. Bontemps, the Mavericks, and not like it's an unheard of game plan. The Mavericks didn't want Luka to have 40 tonight, so they really came out and double teamed him a lot. And to his credit, he passed the ball. I think he had 12 assists. The Lakers had some, LeBron had a really big fourth quarter. But
Yeah, Luka had his first triple double as a Laker officially.
he did, but and he played a fine game. He just didn't play a special game. When he had 10 points or 8 points, whatever it is, coming out of the gate, I think we were all hoping to see some smoke. But he ends up going 6 of 17. He has 15 rebounds, 12 assists, 3 steals. He got in a couple of passing lanes, 2 blocks. He had a very effective game. He did not have a special game, and I guess we'll have to save that for April. But LeBron had a big fourth quarter, and Kyrie had an excellent game. Almost carried him. Klay Thompson hit a bunch of threes in the second half.
I assume there was no interaction pregame between Nico and Luka.
No,
okay.
No.
I just was making sure since you kind of stopped there.
Sorry. They, as far as I could tell, they never even looked at each other.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
But
Luka just saved that for the game.
Nico was there, and Luka was there, and like if either man had wanted to take it a step farther, they could have.
Yeah.
I remember I was at the game where Steve Ballmer. Remember when the Clippers like told Blake Griffin that they were gonna retire his number, and then so he would sign a 5-year contract, and then like 6 months later traded him
5 minutes later. Yes,
and Blake was really upset by it, and like the same moment happened with Steve Ballmer in the same arena. When he came back with the Pistons, I was there that night, and Steve Ballmer like waited for Blake to finish his shooting, and he tried to come over and talk to Blake, and Blake literally ran away from him. So what I was waiting to see was, would Nico try to walk over there? But here's the thing: there was so much media there, Bontemps, that it would not have been personal at all. It would have just been for show. So. Nico waited there. Luka did his thing, and when it was over, Nico went out one tunnel and Luka went out the other. And Nico sat in the bowl in a bright blue suit. That they showed on TV. Mark Cuban showed up. And there wasn't really drama after that.
No, I mean the game was an interesting game. I think we have talked about the Lakers defense. We talked about the other day. Let's see what it looks like going forward. I thought this game had a lot of concerning signs, I think, for the Lakers defense, if you're looking at it from a big picture standpoint. I'm waiting to get the official numbers from our stats and info people. We might have them before we're done. We might not. But you watched the game too. They gave up 1,000 wide open threes to Dallas in this game. Now, the Mavericks have a bunch of guys that can't shoot. So it was Dante Exum and some of these other guys throwing up shots that weren't likely to go in. So you could, I guess, argue, well, maybe that was part of the game plan, was let's let some of these not great shooters shoot the ball. But they did get a lot of open shots. JJ Redick on the broadcast with Allie Force going into the fourth quarter talked about the amount of offensive rebounds the Mavericks got as a problem. They had 14 offensive rebounds. This is a team without Derek Lively, Anthony Davis, and Daniel Gafford. They had their typical lineups out there, being big inside. Be interested to see how they would match up with the Lakers. It is a really compelling stylistic matchup between these two teams now after the trade, if they were to meet in a potential playoff series, which certainly would be something. But look, we talked about it the other day. When you have Luka and LeBron and Austin Reeves out there together, for all the defensive issues you have, and we had Austin Reeves guarding Kyrie at times in this game, which is a sign of the defensive issues the Lakers might have, those three guys, there are very few teams that have three perimeter players or three defenders that can match up with those three guys. And having at least one, if not two of them on the court at all times is generally going to create advantage situations for the Lakers offense over and over and over again. We saw that throughout this game. They got clean looks for their guys all over the place. AD and or Austin Reeves and LeBron both had good games. Luka obviously was throwing the ball around the place, getting the triple-double. And, the Lakers are going to be awfully good with these guys all out there. Just curious to see as this stretch goes along, they start to play some more whole teams, what the defense looks like against some better competition. But the bottom line, man, is they've won 15 out of 19, and they've got a shot at not only home court advantage, but maybe even getting up to second in the West, which is a remarkable thing for a team that we thought was probably going to be hovering somewhere around 6th, 7th, 8th or so in the West. And now not only has Luka, but has Luka back on the court and has a chance to make an even bigger run.
Yeah, and they've got a big homestand here. They can make some dent. And they got 2 home games on this homestand with the Clippers back to back. So that'll be important. What happened in this game tonight? If I'm a Mavs fan, I'm not actually stressed about it. I mean, you're upset that you lost, and you're upset you don't have Luka, obviously. What happened in this game? JJ obviously, when he told Allie LaForce that, he went into the huddle and told the players that get on the boards, because what ended up happening in this game was the Mavericks' lack of a big man showed up massively down the stretch of this game. The Lakers made 11 baskets in the fourth quarter in the paint, 22 points in the paint in the fourth quarter,
and had a few, 2 or 3 of their baskets in the closing minutes came after pretty rough offensive possessions with easy putback baskets at the rim.
And LeBron, Jackson Hayes is just feasting right now on lobs. He's, Jackson Hayes is a fine player. He's not an elite offensive center. If they get a guy who's actually super talented at throwing down lobs, like a guy like Derek Lively, you can see how the Lakers are just going to have a lot.
The one thing Jackson Hayes can do is jump out of the gym. Like he can catch the ball and dunk it, which is part of why I thought the Mark Williams trade was kind of weird to begin with, because you can manufacture center play with Luka Doncic and LeBron James and even Austin Reeves. And like that, Jackson Hayes is going to feast in terms of just getting efficient baskets at the rim.
What I think Jackson Hayes does is he goes in the dunker spot. And he just sort of sits there and waits for the guy to draw.
Correct.
Like if you had like an elite pick and roll player who was also a guy who could pick and pop and also pick and roll and would be very hard to like defend, then you might really have something there. But I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, what they need is somebody at the other end, which Jackson Hayes is not that.
Dwight Powell played for the first time in 6 weeks tonight, and he was their center that they closed with, and he got eaten alive several times.
Dwight Powell's a 13th or 14th guy that is having to play in this game and is just not good enough. Now, and that's where if it's Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively and Anthony Davis, and you've got PJ Washington playing at the 3, like you said, you could see the formula for what the Mavericks want to be. Big and imposing and physical all over the place. And then Kyrie having the ball, orchestrating things, making plays. Kyrie got wherever he wanted in this game, was dominant with the ball, and they just didn't really have enough outside of him and Clay hitting some threes to score enough to win. But yeah, like that's the formula that Nico Harrison and the Mavs wanted to see. And I mean, the question's going to be, can they get these guys healthy in time for the playoffs, and what are they going to look like once they finally do, if they're able to? But yeah, like, I thought both teams showed some stuff. Lakers continue to get wins. And again, between now and March 20th, as they go through this stretch of really tough opponents, I'm going to be really honed in on this Lakers team, because if they keep winning at the rate they are now, like they really could be the 2 seed, and we could be talking about the Lakers really having a legitimate chance to make a run in the West, which I did not expect, just like I didn't expect Luka to be there either.
Well, and also tonight, the Warriors won again. I think they are now 7-1. And they were playing the Hornets. They won by 30, 35, maybe even. It wasn't, but they're now 7-1 since Jimmy Butler got there.
They won by 36, to be clear.
How much did the Cavs win by? I just wanted to check. I didn't see the final score. No,
they won by 40 against the Orlando Magic. Who
did Darius Garland play in that game? I just wanted to check. I don't know what happened. I'm completely oblivious. I don't know.
Darius Garland did not play.
Oh wow, I was totally unaware of that. I'm never aware of what's going on with the Cavs. Thank you for updating me.
Never unaware. No, hopefully Darius Garland is playing on Friday in Boston.
but if we're going to talk about the Thunder later on, the Thunder Wolves game, which was fascinating from Monday night. Um, if you're the Warriors and you're the Lakers, you're feeling okay about yourself as we about to hit the March. Anyway, not playing tonight, but feeling blue. Philadelphia 76ers. Bontemps, I'd like to have a podcast where we didn't talk about them, and we're getting close to being.
We're not going to be talking about it much longer, my friend.
But things are getting worse. They played.
Are they getting worse?
They played the Bulls on Monday. Got down by 50. All you need to know about that game against the Bulls, who have made 2 tanking trades, is the Hornets why I keep talking about the Hornets. We never talk about the Hornets.
I don't know.
The Sixers ended the game on a 24-4 run. They cut the lead down by 20 points in the fourth quarter, and they still lost by 30.
That's correct.
I danced around it.
That's correct.
And then afterwards, Paul George was like, "We haven't been competitive all year. What you think we're going to make a run to the playoffs?"
Yeah, I mean, of course they haven't been competitive all year. I mean, that quote was whatever. I mean, look.
But you were at the game.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to call it a game, I mean, it was a massacre. And yeah, I mean, look, this Sixer season has been over for a while. I think we were on TV together on Friday when we talked about after the Celtic game coming out of the break, and I just said that the idea this Sixer team could make any kind of run is just dead on arrival. Like there's no way they're going to be able to do that. And look, at some point here soon, I mean, Joel Embiid's season is going to be over. I don't know when that's going to happen. I mean, the Sixer season is already over. Joel got imaging done Monday. They've been, discussions about what's going to happen with him going forward. He's not playing Wednesday.
This imaging is probably being sent around to a lot of doctors in the last 24 hours.
I mean, look, Joel has.
How many MRIs do you think Joel Embiid has had on his knees in his life?
He's had a lot. He's had a lot on his whole body. But listen,
I just can't. I'm sorry. I just can't imagine what it's like to him to crawl into another MRI machine.
Look, I saw him I was there after the game on Thursday when he talked to the media and said he has to, quote unquote, fix the problem in his knee. And I've never seen him that down. And, look, the Sixers season can be boiled down to one very simple thing. Over the last decade, for all the stuff that's gone on in Philly, and there's been a lot, right? The one consistent thing about the Sixers has been when Joel Embiid's been on the court, he's been incredible. And generally when he's been on the court, the Sixers have been dominant. And when he's been off the court, they've had problems, right? Even in the playoffs, like you go back, he wasn't exactly the same player he was before he hurt his knee in January, right? You go back to that Knicks series, he's got Bell's palsy, right? His face is messed up. The guy averaged 33, 10, and 5 in the series. And they were plus.
He couldn't close his eye he couldn't close his eye.
Yeah.
He put up 33, 10.
And they were plus with him on the court in the series. Now, again, he wasn't perfect. He had some turnovers in game 6. Like, I'm not trying to say he was incredible, but if that version even of Joel Embiid from April in the playoffs had been playing through this season, we'd be in a different situation, right? He has not looked like that player at all, really, this season. And this is the first time ever in his career that the Sixers have been worse with him, have been not good with him on the court, and he has not been dominant. And for everything else that's gone on, from all the Paul George stuff to all the other injuries to everything else, that right there is the crux of everything that's gone on with the Sixers this season. And moving forward, the question for the Sixers and for Joel Embiid has to be, what is it that needs to be done to get Joel Embiid back to being that kind of player again? And what is that plan? Is that plan possible? What are the steps it takes to get there? That is all it comes back to. And nothing else with the Sixers matters at all other than that.
Yeah. And, really there could be a lot of analysis on this Sixers season, and there will be. I would just say their bet, which includes Paul George, was that Joel would be healthy.
Yes.
And
look, they extended him.
Yes.
They gave him a multiple year max contract extension in late September. Right? Like, they clearly weren't thinking the guy was not going to be playing and looking like this. So that is really where the questions come back to, is making this was all a big bet on Joel Embiid and his health. And that bet has failed and come up snake eyes. And that the central question going forward is, what is he going to look like in the seasons ahead? He's got 4 years and $240+ million left on this contract. And, I think it wasn't long ago when Joel Embiid was averaging more minutes or points than minutes played, right? Which nobody had done in 60 years. So we're not that far away from that. But there's a long way to go to get back there. And, that's where I go back to what Joel said last week. Got to fix the problem to get back to the player I was. Well, what's the fix? Because that's the only question that really matters anymore, is what's the fix? What does it look like? And how are he and the Sixers going to get there? And what does that mean for his future and their future?
Well, we're waiting on what that's going to be. I don't think it's going to be good news. I don't think we're going to have a
he's
positive.
out Wednesday, and we'll see, if and when he plays again this season for Philly.
All right. So the Suns played on Tuesday night. They lost in overtime, 151-148 to the Grizzlies. It was kind of a crazy finish. Ja Morant hit a tough hanging leaner to force overtime, which is exactly what the Suns didn't need. I mean, the Grizzlies really needed the win. They lost 4-6. They're coming home from a long road trip. Grayson Allen missed a free throw late that hurt them. The Suns are now, look, in individual details of the game, whatever. The Suns are now 4 games under 500. They're 3 games
out. 13.
They're 3 games out of the play-in. And they had a game tonight, Bontemps. This is hard to do. Stats Williams, I got to ask him. They had 5 players score 20 points and lost.
It's hard to do.
That's anyway.
Now, it was a 151-148 game.
I understand. But it's still hard to do. And I'll just say this about the Suns. They're the
first time the Suns have had 5 20-point scores in a game per ESPN research since November 10th of 1990, which I believe is before Charles Barkley was a Sun. That's how long ago it was.
I'll bet they won that game too in 1990.
I will look it up while we're talking, but I bet they did.
So again, the same thing with the Suns. The sum is less than the combination of the parts. Like they won
173-143, by the way, that game.
Yeah, that's kind of what you'd expect. That 173 in 1990.
Playing against Denver. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? That was the Paul Westhead nonstop fast break. Okay.
Yep.
That's not even real basketball. So that just tells you
that tells you what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I don't have a fix for them. I think what the Suns should be doing is every single day they should be convening in their front office and having brainstorming on what the Kevin Durant trade should be. Because that's what they're going to have to do. That's their move here. And
for as depressing and awful as the Sixers season has been, and it's been awful and it's been depressing. I've been around it. I mean, I joked on Sunday night that I was headed back to the infinite pit of sadness at the Wells Fargo Center on Monday, and it did not get happier during the 50-point loss to the Bulls. But this Suns team, I think, has been an even bigger disappointment, because they've been relatively healthy this year, and they're still a complete mess. Like, it's incredible how bad this season has been. Like, Kevin Durant's missed 14 games. Bradley Beal, I think, has missed 16 or 17 games. But Devin Booker's played 51 of the 58 games. Their guys have relatively been healthy. And they've been healthy throughout this entire run for the last month. And they're just getting beat over and over and over again.
Bontemps, they made 21 of 37 threes tonight. That's 57%. In Memphis, they made 21. Again, okay, overtime. Right. All right. They made 21 of 37 threes.
It's hard to lose a game shooting 57% from 3.
On the road.
Yeah.
And lost.
Yeah, it's amazing. And look, I mean, you said it. This summer, like this team is broken. There's not a way for them to fix it, and you know, like you just if you're looking at this and trying to game plan out where the Suns are going to go from here, like you have to look at Kevin Durant trades this summer. I talked about it a month ago. To me, you have to look at Devin Booker trades. Like this team has no path.
I'm not touching Devin Booker.
Well,
but
I mean, you could say that, but like Devin Booker is right now in his prime and as good as he's probably ever going to be. That's not a criticism of him. He's like entering his prime years, right? And this team has no path to being a competitive team in anywhere in the near future.
Well,
and so I think you have
I don't
to
think
have
they have
everything on the everything
their
on the table.
their path is you have to make a great Durant trade.
But that's the thing. There isn't a great Durant trade. I don't think to make. That's the crux of the problem.
I didn't think the Lakers were going to acquire Luka Doncic either.
Well, yeah, sure. There could be another black swan event. Like it's a fair rejoinder, yeah. Right? But like Kevin Durant, again, like let's just have a very quick brass tacks conversation about Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is a fantastic basketball player, even at this point in his career, right? However, he's going to be 37 in September.
And looking for an extension.
And he misses 20 games or more basically every year. And he's probably not going to be healthier as time goes by. So if you're talking about looking at offering up a huge extension to that guy and having him be one of your two best players, like there's only so many fits where you could send him where it's going to make any sense to do it. And how much are you actually getting back for a guy who's about to be 37, has injury issues, and there isn't a long-term window? And as we've talked about, there's not exactly a ton of options with massive draft capital that are out there trying to make moves. So, maybe they'll replicate the trade they sent out for Durant and get some insane return for him. I'm not really sure where that's going to come from. And short of that, like, you look at this team going forward, there's really no young talent. There's no salary cap flexibility. There's no assets to speak of. It's as bleak a situation as you could really find in the league, which is remarkable when you have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker both healthy and performing at a pretty high level. Like that just sums up where Phoenix is at.
Yeah. They're longing, wishing they had Toumani Camara. And that's, I think...
Yeah.
Well,
and look, whenever the epitaph of this era of the Suns is written, like there's been a lot of stuff on the margins that they've messed up. And the draft pick trade with Utah was a mistake like that, including Toumani Camara in the DeAndre Ayton trade was a mistake like that. Making the Ayton trade when they made it was a mistake like that. The Bradley Beal trade was a mistake like that, even though it wasn't necessarily on the margins. Like they got Devin Booker and they got Bradley Beal, or they got Kevin Durant, but there's just been a lot of process mistakes throughout, and they've all added up to a very rough situation. And, we do these future power rankings every year, and I don't see any way that the Suns aren't 30th, because I just don't see how you get out of this hole anytime soon. It's brutal.
More earlier in the day here. How about that move? That was enjoyable. That's the magic of television and audio. The magic of our producer, Jackson. Okay. So on Monday night, the Detroit Pistons won their 7th consecutive game. They now have 32 wins this season. They had 31 combined the last 2 years. There isn't a stat. There isn't a comeback or most improved team award, but they would be unanimous if that was the case. I actually think that it might give Philly, with where Philly is right now, if you looked at where the Pistons were 365 days ago, look at where they are now, you can make a pivot if things start going your way.
I mean, sure. The Sixers could be better next year, but that's underselling the turnaround for the Pistons pretty dramatically, given where
I don't think
been.
It's underselling it, because the Sixers are at complete rock bottom, and the idea that they would be having in a really good spot a year from now is hard to see at the moment. It's just like would have been if I told you a year ago.
It's a lot more unbelievable that the Pistons are 32-26 today than it would be that the Sixers are 32-26 a year from now.
This is not worth getting into an argument over. All right, Detroit, I think most importantly, is 4 games clear of Orlando for the 6th seed. They are in excellent position to get into the playoffs outright.
Only 2 losses back of 4th, fellas.
That's true. When you look at the other, I don't want to undersell them.
Than 8th.
That's right. You are there. They are very. That is very much true. The way they're playing right now, why shouldn't they look at 4th? And Cade Cunningham, I was just talking earlier today to a coach who just coached against Cade within the last 7 to 10 days or so. And obviously, look, the guy is the number 1 overall pick a few years ago. He is not an unheralded player. But the thing about Cade that the teams are noticing is just how strong he is and how he's learned to use his strength to his favor when he's just become an offensive force. I did watch some of the game the other night when they played the Hawks. He had a big game against the Hawks, and Dyson Daniels is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. And look, Daniels' game is deflections and steals. It's not necessarily strength. But Cade just at times was able to use his body to just bulldoze him. And I don't know, Bontemps, like, I had to look it up, what the rules were for Cade Supermax, because that's now on the table. Him potentially making all NBA the way he's been playing here and leading the Pistons. And it's been one of the stories of the year in the NBA. The Pistons, rising to this level in the standings and their overall turnaround under JB Bickerstaff, with Cade Cunningham making their first All-Star, I think, in 6 years. And potentially, I got to look back the last time they've had an All-NBA player. It might have been even a decade or more.
Blake Griffin.
Yeah, Blake Griffin in 2019.
He made All-NBA that year?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
God bless America.
Yeah, he was great that season after that last full season when they got in the playoffs and lost. That's the last time they made the playoffs too. And yeah, I mean, look, Cade, especially with all the injuries that have happened. I mean, Cade is sitting there. He's averaging almost 26 a game, 9.5 assists. Combine that with the way the Pistons have played overall, I think he's got a great shot at making All-NBA, which would trigger a 30% supermax for him. And look, I mean, we've talked about JB Bickerstaff or Kenny Atkinson for Coach of the Year going back to the beginning of the season. Kenny's done an unbelievable job. The Pistons finishing 4th in the East with home court advantage. JB Bickerstaff should win Coach of the Year. Like, it would be an unbelievable
That's true.
turnaround for this team. Because again, your point about the Sixers is fair. The Pistons last year were like 2-30 to start the season and were a complete disaster area of a franchise. And they are now 32-26, going to be a top 6 team in the East, barring
and
injury.
Lost Jaden Ivey for a big chunk of the season. Like,
I've lost Jaden Ivey for a bunch of years, who was playing a lot better. They're playing these young guys. It's been a really impressive turnaround. And Cade's been right in the middle of it. I mean, look, obviously he had the shin issue and missed a whole chunk of his second year. The franchise has been a mess a lot of the time he's been in the league. You're still talking about a 6'7", 6'8" ball handler who can dribble, pass, and shoot it, is big enough to guard just about anybody on the perimeter, is solid defensively. Like, he's the kind of malleable piece that you can put around anybody and have a lot of success. When you look at the Celtics are built around 2 big wings, right? I know Cade runs the point for them, but he's a big wing. Like that's the ideal piece to build a team around. And he's playing great. The Pistons are playing great. And you said it. It's been one of the best stories of the whole season. It's been really, really fun.
And look, the Pistons have been in a state of chaos for his entire career until this season. And this is his 3rd coach in 3 years. It is interesting. Probably the top 2 candidates for Coach of the Year are JB Bickerstaff and the guy who replaced JB Bickerstaff, Kenny Atkinson, in Cleveland. But this is also the first time that Cade Cunningham has been in an environment where he really had reasonable hope of succeeding. They've got all these young pieces around him. They had no shooting. He was playing in a phone booth all the time before the season. They went out, they got Tobias Harris. People didn't like the contract, whatever. He is a professional that you've got to guard at the 3-point line. He's been a really solid addition for them. Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, volume 3-point shooters. Give them a little bit of room
between Hardaway and Beasley, they put up 15 threes a game.
Yeah, they're volume 3-point shooters.
And hit about 40% of them.
Yeah. And Bontemps, I just was talking to somebody recently who mentioned he was sitting right next to you in a gym in Las Vegas a couple of summers ago. And he said, I was a year early, But when we were sitting here watching this guy, and I remember you talking about on the pod, watching Cade Cunningham with the select team at Team USA's camp look like a blossoming star. We are seeing that translate right now onto the NBA court.
Yeah, he had missed almost all of his second year, and he's coming out. He was coming out, and it was like the first time anybody had seen him in months.
Mm-hmm.
And you were raving about him, Bontemps, and then he was good last year, but he didn't start off great. Like we all thought he was going to explode. He was like sort of the in vogue thing to anybody who was in Vegas was like, oh my gosh, here comes Cade Cunningham. And then it really kind of didn't happen.
Well, and he was okay.
He had a good year, but it wasn't.
You can't have a good year on a 14-win team.
You're
it's
right.
impossible. It's just impossible.
You're right.
But again,
this is the first time MacMahon said it. This is the first time in Cade Cunningham's career he's had a functioning team around him from top to bottom. They have a solid ecosystem around him from a shooting standpoint, so he has room to operate on the court. Last year they were, Monty Williams was playing Killian Hayes next to him. There was all this weird stuff going on. He's playing off the ball.
Hey, MacMahon, he squeezed the Killian Hayes reference.
USWB. Nobody likes to get tinkle on Killian Hayes more than USWB.
Look, the team just makes a lot more sense now. And to me, it's not a surprise that the team makes more sense. Cade Cunningham has taken a real step forward. And it's been an awesome story. The Pistons are obviously a very proud, storied franchise. It's been a really rough decade or so for them from a lack of success standpoint for a proud fan base. And they now have the makings of what should be a really fun team going forward with a heck of a stud with the ball.
The question is not, will Cade Cunningham be All-NBA? It's which All-NBA team will he make? He ranks 10th in scoring, 3rd in assists, is filling the stat sheet up outside of that for a team that is winning. It's absolutely an All-NBA season.
I only say that I'm not sure about it because I wait to start to really map it out. But to your point, especially when you start ticking off the number of guys that are not eligible for All-NBA that would have been considered for it in the past, my expectation is that Cade will be in the 15 at the end of the season as things stand now.
All right. So I've told the story before, but I'm just going to tell it again because we're talking about the Pistons. And for anybody who may not have seen it, and this is on ESPN too. One of the most remarkable things that happened when Trajan Langdon got the president's job of this team, he hired JB Bickerstaff and he didn't really know him. So often you're going to get into a big job your first time and you're making it's not a risk hire, but like you're making a huge hire. His whole, the first coaching hire is so important, and it would have been easy for him to lean in. He's been around the NBA. I think he got drafted in 99 or something like that. He's been around the NBA for 20 years. There's a lot of people that he knew, but he believed that the job that needed to be done mirrored the job that Bickerstaff did when he turned the Cavs around. Mm-hmm. And so he brought him in. They got to know each other as much as they could. And it was a risk to hire somebody that you didn't know when you're a first-time president, when you are taking over a team that demanded instantaneous improvement. And that hire has been a home run. And so not only just the hire, but the analysis and the belief that Trajan Langdon had in going with JB, I think is key backstory here.
And the moves to go get Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway.
Malik Beasley is one of the best value signings in the whole NBA.
Yeah. They went and put players around Cade Cunningham to put him in the best position to really find out what he could do. Now, they obviously also gave him a max contract and showed, hey, you're going to be our franchise guy going forward. But they then put him in a position to play like a franchise guy, and he has, and the results have been what they are.
MacMahon, we're here in Los Angeles, and we ran into some Timberwolves here in LA. They made their way out here after their 24-point fourth quarter comeback. And on Tuesday, when we're recording this, they were still very much beaming from that. One of the craziest 10 minutes, because it was 24 points with 10 minutes to go. Ant Edwards comes out of the game with a bit of a sore calf with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left?
Yeah, like 3:41, I think. They're down 16.
The chances of that game and
not just against any team, by the way.
Against the team that was tied for the best record in the league.
And Minnesota had a shot at the buzzer to win it. Like 16, they were down with 3:40 left, and there was a ball in the air at the buzzer where they would have won it. And then
I hate win probability, but that win probability was like 99.8, I'm sure.
how could it not be 99.9? If
Right.
it's not 99.9, what is it? What is the
From our
probability?
ESPN research group, teams that had a 24-plus point lead in the fourth quarter had won 1,552 consecutive games until the Timberwolves rallied in Oklahoma City to win in overtime, with Anthony Edwards watching the vast majority of the comeback from the bench.
And overtime.
Jackson says 99.7. I almost nailed it. Did it say in the research thing what the last game was? Because I think I remember the game.
It was Nets at Kings on March 19th, 2019.
Oh, so that still would have been that was the year before Kyrie and Durant. Yeah.
So a couple things from this game. One, Terrence Shannon Jr. He's been getting extra playing time. Actually, 3 rookies from the Wolves have been getting extra playing time with their guys out, with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo out. But Terrence Shannon Jr. has been playing better. Dillingham was in this game. He was in. I shouldn't say in this game. He was in during the stretch where they make the comeback. And Terrence Shannon Jr., who was 27th pick in the draft, has been a developmental guy for them this year. He had a breakout stretch there.
Yep.
The Wolves overall playing really good defense, which is really the basis of their team, and they haven't played enough good.
Despite Rudy Gobert not playing due to the back spasms that he's been dealing with coming out of the All-Star break.
Yeah, and with their 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. Also, but more importantly, Bontemps, total one-off game. I realize I'm not going to freak out with the Thunder, but the 2-1-2 trapping zone that Chris Finch pulled out, the Wolves were playing small, and so they had a lot of speed on the court, which allowed them to do that. But they trapped Shea aggressively and then basically played zone on the back of it. I mean, in a way, it was almost sort of became a box or a triangle in 2, because they were trapping Shea to get the ball out of his hands and then scrambling in recovery.
Yeah, the 2 were on one guy.
Right. I got to say, if I'm watching Oklahoma City, I'm not necessarily saying I'm going to play that for an entire quarter, but I'm putting that in my arsenal if I'm thinking about using it against them later, because as you've talked about all year, there are times when Oklahoma City can, especially in half-court offense, can go a little dry. And secondly, Oklahoma City has got to develop ways to deal with that, because after seeing what it did to them, they're going to be seeing it again. I don't know if it's going to be this week or this month, but it's going to happen again.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is one of those games where I'm much more concerned about falling behind by 24 if I'm the Wolves in the long term than I am making the crazy comeback to win the game against the Thunder, and what obviously is a fluke game. However,
what a USWB response.
Well, I mean,
I'm
looking at the sample. Okay, the sample size is the 40 minutes that led up to the lead, not the crazy comeback. However, yes, if you are a Thunder pessimist, which there are Thunder pessimists in the league, the criticism of the Thunder as a championship contending team is that after Shea, there's a lot of questions about shot creation and offense. And Shea very well may be the MVP of the league. He has been unbelievable. But like you said, in the playoffs, you're going to see teams try to get the ball out of his hands. And can Jalen Williams and can, these other guys, Isaiah Hartenstein, Chet Holmgren, whoever's going to end up with the ball trying to make plays, are they going to be able to do enough offensively to make up for that? So I think over the course of time, if you played a triangle in 2 and double Shea, the Thunder are going to figure that out and it's going to work. It was a good gimmick thing for Chris Finch to pull off there, got him a crazy comeback win. But the general point of, are the Thunder going to be able to make up enough offense outside of Shea to win at the highest level? That is very much a question. And we talked the other day about pessimists of the Thunder. That's the biggest thing they're going to point to.
Yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for Oklahoma City, because again, the Wolves were shorthanded. They pulled off the comeback with Ant watching the vast majority of it while nursing a little calf injury. I will point out, though, that Chet Holmgren sat out this game, second night of a back-to-back, obviously still pretty early coming back off that injury. Terrible fashion choice, wore a hat with a picture of himself on it. But again, only team-issued gear would be my advice to him. Bigger point, though, he did not play. Isaiah Hartenstein had a facial laceration and didn't play down the stretch of this game. The Oklahoma City Thunder are an average team when they don't have either of their awesome 7-footers. When they have one or the other, they're awesome. When they have both, they're unbelievable. But, ideally, if you're Oklahoma City and you've got teams that are trapping Shea up, 35 feet from the hoop to force the ball out of his hands, you can get it to one of those guys in the middle of that, both good passers, both guys capable of putting the ball on the floor and finishing. Hartenstein's got the push shot. Chet's got a lot of skills. Without either of those guys, you're taking away two of their 4 best players, I would say.
I'd still say though that they were up 24 and they're up 16 with 3.5 to go, and that's probably going to matter a lot more.
One thing that's been pointed out in the fourth quarter and overtime, the Wolves went to the line 22 times. So one of the ways you allow
that is how you come back from that kind of deficit.
It helps to come back when you can score when the clock is stopped.
And our guy Chris Finch still about the refs post game, talking about they foul on every play, which you hear opponents and opposing coaches say that about the Thunder. Certainly the best defense in the league, the most physical defense in the league. And then he said, and when you touch, they don't let you touch SGA. So Finch, I think, was trying to kind of lay the foundation for some.
Hey, it could be a first round series. Could easily be a 1-8 series in the first round. Wolves Thunder.
Last time I saw Chris Finch, Ohio State had just lost to Michigan. And we were very, very much lamenting the state of the team.
We're not talking about Ohio State football.
Get out of here with Ohio State.
In fact, we are.
I saw Tyler Ford yesterday. He was talking about he would like to talk about Ohio State too. Talk to him about it.
So I'm looking forward. Finch and the Wolves are going to be in town for 3 days here. I'm going to see him, and we're going to have a nice debrief. Not about the comeback.
Get out of here.
We're going
get out of here with the Ohio State talk.
Hey, Bontemps, I see a iron back there behind MacMahon. He is 6 floors away from me. I'm here for a long week this week, MacMahon.
Yeah.
Are you offering a service? Could I bring down some clothing and you could, make me nice and fresh?
All right, listen, I am certainly open for negotiations. I probably could have gotten that iron out of the way before we started this thing. It's a hectic day here in a better brush.
I'm open to
negotiations, especially since I had to pull out the credit card last night and pay for my own share of dinner.
By the way, he reached for it without even me looking. Like his credit card was already down.
Wow.
Before I could even get to my wallet.
Now, you know what that means? That means there's something coming. I don't know what it is.
Eating dinner with Wendy, though, it had its benefits. We went to Craig's in Hollywood, a heck of a spot, historic spot. And boy, were they happy to see Wendy. We got there early. Our reservations about 45 minutes later. No. We got a nice little table right after, by the way.
Hey, listen, Hollywood's about stars. We got a star here. So
in the lobby of the hotel, we run into Shamgod, the Mavs assistant coach, obviously a basketball legend, a New York City playground legend. And he introduces us to one of his buddy. He said, "This is Jadakiss." And Jadakiss, the rap legend,
of course,
Wendy to take a picture with him. So
Jadakiss, huge hoops fan.
Hey, hanging with Wendy has its benefits. That's all I
think
know.
He was just on the Mellow Pod the other day talking about some hoop stuff. He's a big hoops fan.
Has its benefits,
he knows the game.
He's got those little lobster claw arms when it comes to check time.
Yeah, well, you should have seen MacMahon. Well, I'll just leave it alone. All right. Thank you for watching the Hoop Collective. Thank you to Jackson, our producer. Thank you to Bontemps. Thank you to MacMahon. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll talk to you later this week.
Adios, amigos.